The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
I think I've always believed in the paranormal, but the deeper I get in this field, the more questions I uncover. I started a program called Seeking the Paranormal in an effort to gain insight and dialogue from others interested in the same things as me. And while we've learned a lot together, the questions still remain. So I'm bringing my thoughts to the airwaves, and I've brought along my friends, Adam and John, to share in the fun. Together, we'll tackle the tough topics and debate the evidence as we continue to seek the paranormal. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for this third episode of Seeking the Paranormal. We're going to pick up kind of where we left off last week, only this time we're going to delve a little deeper into commercialization of the paranormal field, and this week we're going to focus on paranormal TV shows. But before we do that, I would like to hear how the investigation at the Squirrel Cage jail went.
Well, it was good. From my point of view, there's a couple of things I like. One is it took till about 3 in the morning for it to get, stuff we were really noticing. So it kind of ramped up slow, which sometimes I like it that way. I mean, we pulled a few things from it. I mean, I was doing the big ghost feeder experiment. Keep going on with that. But we pulled some footsteps pretty loud off camera. We're still going through a lot of stuff, but I think we got enough of it to call it a success and be willing to go back again.
All right, Adam, what was your take on the experience?
Well, I'm with John. I mean, it was slow, but it seemed like once things kind of started happening, it seemed to pick up relatively quickly. We had quite a bit of activity with one of the K2s that we were able to match up with a tri-field meter, which was kind of cool, being able to put two pieces of equipment together. One that people might be a little skeptical of, with another one that is Science, yeah. There you go. Yeah, good word for that. That was pretty cool and pretty exciting. I know we got that really cool video of footsteps. That's going to be interesting to put out there, let people listen to. Eric's reaction to it was not quite as exciting as I feel like it should be, but...
Anybody down there? No? Okay.
That's one of those ones I fear that someone's going to say they faked it because it is so good.
Well, between that, yes, because it is so good and so clear, number one. Number two, Eric's reaction is going to be like, oh yeah, they faked that because he didn't even get excited. But people that don't know him don't know that he takes an awful lot to get him excited. So that was interesting. I mean, it's definitely, maybe we can go back in the fall time when it's not so hot in there. That'd be nice. Spending some time up on that 3rd and 4th floor with the heat was a little overbearing. But
so what was each of your favorite part?
Actually, I like the history and seeing it. I mean, that's no mean feat to build a revolving jail back then. I got a big kick out of that. And then also that there was an offshoot wing of metal bars that was for juvie, for kids that hadn't done anything wrong. It's just their parents were in jail, so they threw the kids in jail too. I don't know why, but there's a dark side that gets a kick out of that. So yeah, the history part, as far as the investigation went, once again, I like playing with all the gadgets. So we got our Mark II SLS camera running, which was good. We deployed the feeders and we got different results, which I kind of enjoyed. It wasn't going off, it didn't go off at all downstairs. In fact, that's one of the things on that investigation is everyone is expecting prisoners and people jumping off of balconies and hanging themselves. But all the activity that I found, apart from the footsteps, was all happening in the apartment upstairs, which is actually where the hauntings were reporting from early on. The warden that lived up there said it was haunted. So,
correct.
That kind of surprised me, and I enjoyed that. I like being surprised.
Yeah, I would say probably my biggest take on it would be I did enjoy the fact, although while you're in the moment, it's getting a little ridiculous that everything's so slow, but it lends a little credence to when we did get stuff, that our equipment wasn't just going off constantly, and when it finally did, we had multiple things be able to pick up on things at the same time. So that to me is kind of exciting, and also at 3 o'clock in the morning it tends to wake you up when things finally start going off.
I was actually shocked at the amount of disembodied voices that we heard. I heard talking a couple times that was really faint, but probably the coolest part, Adam and I were sitting in what ended up being our break room, was the kitchen, and both of us heard a male sigh. I mean, very loudly, just... And I have not had an opportunity to go through our evidence yet, but I'm hoping I caught it because it was just so loud I can't imagine that I wouldn't. And I should have had 2 recorders going in that vicinity at that time, so hopefully I'll be able to share that at some point here in the future. Actually, I'm going to mention too, Adam and I, God bless Adam for dealing with me, because I love traveling and I love finding really random places to visit when we're on these road trips. So a 4-hour trip took us 10 hours to get home Saturday. We got to stop and see Malvern Manor and Villisca. We didn't go inside either one, but we did stop and take some pictures. We went to the cemetery in Villisca and visited all of the victims, so that was really cool. I love stopping at cemeteries. So we stopped at an old cemetery kind of in the middle of nothing.
It was an old Mormon cemetery, actually, is what we found.
But that was really neat. And then we made our way to Buxton, Iowa, which is no longer a town. It's a ghost town. There's the shell of a few buildings still visible. But the amount that I've learned about that town since having visited, and for the hour we were there, you're essentially in the middle of a field, and we were having EMF hits. Adam's camera died. It was a really cool experience, and I cannot wait to get back there, especially now that I know the history of it. So I am hoping that later this month we'll be able to conduct an overnight investigation there and talk a little bit more about that. So
yeah, and in the meantime, I mean, if anybody wants to learn a little bit of the history, check out some of the YouTube videos about Buxton, Iowa. It's super cool. Who would have thought that was in the state of Iowa? I mean,
Absolutely.
I know everybody says Iowa's just full of nothing but corn, which is true, but it's pretty cool to find an old abandoned coal mining town off a couple gravel roads, actually. So
on to our topic for the night, talking about the paranormal on TV. And I actually did a presentation about this at the Granger House last year sometime. So I've done a little bit of research. I can tell you that there have been, United States alone, probably over 300 different paranormal shows. Some have only lasted a little while. Some have lasted up until the present. The first show I'm going to quiz you to, without looking. Adam just cheated.
I didn't, because I can't read. It's too far away.
Do you guys know the name of the first paranormal television show in America?
Scooby-Doo.
No. But that's
although I
guess.
like that answer. That's a good answer. What was it?
Wasn't Taps, was it?
No, it was...
well before.
It had Leonard Nimoy on it, right?
In Search of is not the first show.
Oh, okay. That's the one I was thinking of.
There was actually one prior to that called One Step Beyond that first aired in 1959 on ABC.
The amazing drama you're about to see is a matter of human record. You may believe it or not. But the real people who lived this story, they believe it. They know. They took that one step beyond.
And it actually ran until 1961. It was hosted by John Newland. And it was a 30-minute docudrama that talked about some of the things you probably would have seen on Unsolved Mysteries years later. They did do one episode called The Sacred Mushroom that was filmed in a reality TV format.
I want to be on that episode.
I can smell the colors.
This member of the mushroom family, this fungus, is for the moment known only as X. It was discovered barely weeks ago growing in a remote rainforest. Science has not yet given it a name, for science knows scarcely anything about it. But it is felt that X might have one remarkable quality, that it stimulates extrasensory perception, enabling the mind to become telepathic and clairvoyant.
Shortly after that show, Then in Search of with Leonard Nimoy did appear in 1977 and ran to 1982.
A sudden draft from a window that was supposed to have been closed. A chill at the back of the neck. Groans, creaks, and bumps in the night. Man has always been frightened by the dark, troubled by noises just beyond the reach of lights, occurrences just beyond the reach of understanding.
And they conducted investigations into controversial topics such as aliens, paranormal, and ancient myths. They kind of set the standard for how paranormal shows are presented today. So they talked about the story, they did some reenactments and testimonials, they did an investigation, and then they did the reveal, which you should probably recognize that format from many of the TV shows that are on today. After that, of course, we had unsolved mysteries, sightings. What shocked me when I was doing my research is where a huge portion of how we watch paranormal shows today originated with the MTV show Fear.
Prison, the ultimate mystery, is 120 years old, overcrowded, and has more than once been the site of an inmate rebellion.
They settled down there and they started killing
the walls were the world outside of the world.
They break. We went and hunt for Boston.
Anybody hear me? You guys hear me? Tell me what I was on. After that hole, you should book it. Get the hell out of there as fast as you can. Get out of there.
And I don't know if any of you remember that. It was in 2000. And they took people into these haunted locations. And I want to say one of the first ones may have even been like Penhurst or somewhere like that. But they would take them and they would have kind of a safe room. And then they would have to wear cameras and they would be sent out on challenges. So they'd have to go to a certain room and sit in a certain place by themselves. You know, go sit in the electric chair by yourself for this long, or go sit in the morgue and sit in one of the trays for this long, or whatever. But it's really thanks to that show that we have It's Happening to You Now, kind of Blair Witch type format, all originated on MTV, trying to scare the crap out of people and probably traumatize some folks.
They deserve it.
They probably did.
They signed up for it.
Yes.
Yep. They were looking for the paycheck.
So I'm curious what your guys' favorite paranormal TV show is. Or was.
My favorite paranormal TV show, honestly, was the very beginning of Ghost Hunters. It was that was my favorite, and it was probably also my introduction to the paranormal field. But that was probably my favorite just in the beginning. Towards the end of the first running of Ghost Hunters, they got a little overboard in some spots, I would say. But the very beginning, I enjoyed the fact that it was very real. Like, they were plumbers, they had a day job. I mean, I can even remember a scene with Jason talking to his wife.
Becoming expensive to take off from work, and you're missing time with the family.
We've got a family. I've got work to do. My normal job, rotor-rooter, I'm sure doesn't appreciate all the time I've got to miss here and there. So it affects you financially. It really does. And then it affects her emotionally, which affects me emotionally.
And his wife telling him how much money they were spending on him taking time off work and the equipment and all that stuff. And that seemed very real, because that's a conversation that I think even me and Sarah have had. That, you know, you're spending too much money. Not that I listen necessarily, but I'm just saying. That seemed very realistic, and I also enjoyed the fact that they would go into people's homes, and there was a lot of times when they would go in and say, it's not haunted. It's, the plumbing is weird. You need to have an electrician come and look at the electrical. And that, the realistic point of it, was what made that probably my favorite show.
What about you, Don?
I don't have one. You gotta remember, I was totally skeptical I used to watch them for entertainment value only, but not very long. And, you know, I've been a skeptic most of the time, and I still am pretty skeptic of most things, but, you know, I'd watch them, and in my mind they're made to entertain people, and some of them were entertaining. I agree with you, the beginning of the Ghost Hunter series, though, if you look at those and look at what we got now, to me, those are more entertaining. I still think a lot of it's bummed because they're arguing over money, and he's got a day job, but she doesn't bring up how much money he's making doing the program that she's being filmed for. So, you know...
And I'm not sure they were making a lot of money at first.
Well,
there was
sure they weren't making a little, though. I mean,
there was an interview. There was an interview with Jason and Grant, and he had his keys sitting on a table, and somebody noticed that a symbol on his key ring, and they thought it was, if I am wrong on this, I'm sorry, but they thought it was a Rolls-Royce symbol. I've watched this, and he said during an interview that it was not. He has a Mini Cooper. In that saying, at that point in time, they were not making a lot of money, in my opinion, doing the TV show. Now, could they have staged that a little bit and made it a little bit more dramatic?
I think they were harping back to days before. Because even, you know, I mean, making that TV show, I'm guessing the TV show covered their expenses to do the ghost hunting, so there's no argument about how much they're spending doing the ghost hunting at that point. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm sure they're getting an income from it, and I'm guessing that income is probably more than he made as a plumber. So, and this is just me, how I think back then, and now too. But, and then the hours you have to put in to actually make an episode, I doubt that's all done in one night.
Oh,
so,
no way.
Are they really going to work the next day as plumbers and then coming home every night and then going out and sitting 12 hours? So I'm just saying, when I was watching it, I enjoyed it, but I also... It's kind of like, you know, when they knock on the door and surprise someone, they open the door and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were coming."
Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
We're Taps. We're here to help.
Glad you could come. Come on in.
Right. But there's a cameraman inside the house filming her opening the door saying, "Oh, I didn't know you were coming." So what did she think the cameraman was there for? You know, I guess that's the way I'm looking at it.
Right.
You know, and I'm not knocking them. It was a good product, and, you know, I'm sure... And they were good. They were, for me at that time, they were cutting edge at actually using, you know, proper... scientific, or, you know, could be called scientific equipment to measure ghosts, instead of just wandering around saying, "Oh, I feel bad feelings from this room."
Right.
You know, I was hooked that way, but...
Well, and you've actually brought up several things that I want to talk about in what you just said. Starting with, well, and I will mention, Ghost Hunters will be back.
Ghost Hunters is back with a new team, better tech, and more answers.
A&E has signed them to, I think I saw 20 episodes to start out with. It is Grant Wilson and a whole new cast, which made me sad. I was expecting some of the past members, but it looks like he's the only one coming back. And that is going to air August 21st of 2019, so we'll see how that goes. A&E also is bringing back Psychic Kids.
I've always had feelings of someone watching me.
These abilities have really started as a curse.
There's a woman here. What if she does have the power to, like, hurt me?
Oh, God.
In this house, a woman died. She's not happy.
It wants us to leave.
Psychic Kids.
And Celebrity Ghost Stories. And then they've also added 2 new shows to their slate of shows. Trey, the Texas Medium, which I know John will be sure to tune in for that one, because he loves mediums.
Love them all.
And then The World's Biggest Ghost Hunt. From what I read, it sounds like they're going to be locking several different groups into buildings for a certain period of time, whether it's a week or what, and they'll investigate these places. Despite the reputation Paranormal TV has gotten lately, and I would say most of it due to Ghost Adventures, but I shouldn't say that, because there are a lot of shows that are even worse than that one. Paranormal TV has done some good things, and, you know, part of it is it created a community. It gave people something to talk about, gave us some perspective, and brought people with similar interests together. So I do think that there are some good things that have come out of Paranormal TV, even if it's not good television. It's also given us some ideas on how to investigate and given us ideas on types of equipment to use, which we kind of talked about earlier. The problem with that, then, of course, is that I don't feel like we've diverted much from what we've seen on TV.
See, I look at it the other way. I mean, for a certain genre or niche of people, it is good TV. It's just not good ghost hunting. The problem being is, you're right, it's brought lots of people into it, but starting them off fundamentally with a bad foundation, I think. So it's all about the drama and the ooh and the, you know, and the equipment's there, but they don't explain the theory of the equipment a lot of times. They'll just, gloss over it quick. Says, basically they're telling you this finds ghosts.
Right.
They're not saying, okay, what's the theory of the ghost that you're going after, which aspect are you trying to find, which to me is, that would make the TV shows for me a lot better. I guess I'm kind of glad they're there, but I don't, personally, I can't watch them just because I just, my wife will slap me because I'm picking holes in them the whole time. She's no fun to watch, so...
I used to be able to watch them. I can't anymore because it is so far off from reality. To be honest, I don't even know if I'm going to watch Ghost Hunters reboot.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventurers do a crossover like they do Chicago PD and just watch the fireworks as those guys try and work together.
Yes.
That would be so
that
much
would
fun
be
to watch.
super, super interesting. Or have one go to one location one night and then have them swap and see what the difference in reactions that they have would be. Because I can only imagine the reactions that would be different, and that would be...
Do you really think they're that different from one another?
I completely do. I say that because, number one, Grant's the one coming back, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that left initially. Number one, he said a lot was because he wanted to spend more time with his family, and I get that, and that's completely respectable. But he also left prior to them starting, in my opinion, to get more dramatized.
But that's speculation on your part.
It's completely speculation, but I'm just saying, if you watch the shows and you see how the show was progressing, he did leave prior to it starting to get really off the wall, I guess, in some aspects. So, yes, as speculative as that is of me.
Well, I've got a question, because I don't watch them much. I'll catch them on TV if they're on and I'm not doing anything. But, for an example, how many times did the TAPS team shout demon, or say it was a demon, compared to young Mr. Baggins?
This is a real demon. A real demon. A real evil demon.
And that's true. And interestingly enough,
or provoking,
TAPS had a demonologist on their team for at least the first season. But I don't know that the topic of demons was ever really discussed on the show.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is the style. I mean, TAPS, I don't remember them ever provoking. Whereas young Bilbo Baggins, he's always going out there and,
We went into this place, something that's never done before, and we taunted them. We asked them to come out and stand up to us and fight us. And, it's not rocket science. I think that's why it happened.
So, to me, it'd be interesting to do a crossover, or at least, like Adam said, you go in here and do it your way, and then next time those go in and do it their way, and then see what they both different ones pick up, and more importantly, what their interpretation of what they picked up is.
Right.
I think.
Because I know, there was quite a few episodes where Steve and Tango, for instance, got orbs.
These potential orbs and, things flying around. This is the big one. We've been saving this to last. The biggest piece of dust.
And they would show them, yes, in earlier seasons. They would show them to Jason and Grant, and they would say it's just an orb.
If there is such thing as orbs, Grant, that's an orb.
All right, but an orb, because you call it an orb, even if we're willing to say it's an orb, are you willing to say the house is haunted because of an orb?
No.
Now, if Zach Beggins gets an orb...
As we all start hearing sounds coming from the second floor, we capture this strange strobing ball of light coming out of the door. We debunk this as not being a dust particle because it clearly comes out of the room with this door frame.
Beelzebub lives again.
Right, exactly.
Abandon hope, all ye.
Exactly. It's a demon, and it's coming out of my head, and I mean, it's just... So I think that would be very interesting.
Well, and I do feel like Paranormal TV is one of the reasons that the theory of orbs has lived on. I think they're the ones who brought it to people's attention, and I think that they are the reason that it has hung on, despite so many people, rational people at that, explaining what they're really seeing.
Yes, how many websites do you go to and you see stuff like that? You know, and everybody says it's signs of spirit activity when it's not. We all know it's not. It's dust, lint, bugs, whatever it may be. You know, orb activity doesn't mean that spirits are local to that. You know.
There's another reason I think orbs live on, though. And yes, it is the TVs, but people that go out and do the ghost hunting like they've seen on TV, the only thing they get from sitting there for 10 hours is an orb. They need to get something. They're invested. They've spent money, time, you know, everything. They can't walk away with nothing.
I agree.
So, you know, if they get a speck of dust that looks like an orb, it's an orb.
Yeah.
And you will not talk them out of it.
Well, and I will tell you, I have friends who buy into the orb theory, and they know how I feel about it, and thankfully they're good enough people that we can even investigate together, and it doesn't become an issue. But they're such good people, and they're so rational that I wish that they would just stop believing in that. But, you know, and it could come someday where I am the fool who has denounced it this whole time, and they really are something. Who knows? And I will also add, and I've said before, I do think that there are such thing as orbs. I think, but in my opinion, it is something that emits its own light. It's a ball of light that you see in a pitch dark room with your own eyes, not with the aid of a camera. Because I have seen those balls of light.
I've never seen one
in a pitch dark room. Yeah.
So for me, at this point, all I've ever seen is ones on camera, and the same with the streaks, you know, where it's a hair or something.
Right.
You know,
one show that the more I think about this and the conversations we're having, I really appreciated Fact or Fake.
Tonight on Fact or Faked.
Because they really took the time to investigate some of the claims that people were making, especially paranormal claims. Even if it seemed like it was something that was so crazy and outlandish, they would still take the time to try to debunk it. And almost every time they were able to. Now, there's some that they came up with and said, I have no idea what this is, but...
The only orb thing that I've ever seen, and I was younger and I haven't seen it in 100 years, that actually I was like, wow, is the BBC did a documentary, like in the footsteps of Harry Price or something. They went to Borley Church because the rectory had been flattened by then.
Yes.
And they set up and they took a couple of professors, the BBC camera crew. And remember, this is the BBC, so they're all stiff upper lip,
yes.
You know, and they're trying to debunk it. And they were filming, and in the middle of the church, this ball of light came out, went up, and then, you know, and they caught that on camera, and they saw it.
At about 4:10 in the morning, 3 of us kept watch on the choir stall adjacent to the altar. This was to be a memorable and frightening occasion. For most of the period, there were odd clicks and taps generated in the area of the font. But as it was extremely dark, we could see nothing. Then we began to see tiny points of light hovering on the curtain behind the font and on one of the pews about a quarter of the way down the church. At first, we thought we couldn't believe our own eyes, and each one of us thought we were suffering from fatigue, until we broke the silence to speak about it.
See, that's the thing that, like you said, if you can see it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it rattled him because that professor was on there and he was like, you know, this is the 70s, he had a tweed jacket on and well, I don't know what that could have been, you know.
Right.
So, you know. So, you know, maybe there is something in it, but all these little spicks and specks on photographs, I'm sorry, I don't buy into those.
I would have to agree wholeheartedly. We kind of touched on the equipment, and I think that, you know, and I can take it a step further. I don't even know that I would be investigating the paranormal with any seriousness if it weren't for Paranormal TV, because I don't think I realized that people were really doing that until Ghost Hunters came out. So I do have that to thank for actually, you know, pushing me into not just reading books about it and actually doing something about it. And while I agree with you that the shows haven't done a great job of explaining why we use the equipment that we use, it is because of them that we are using the equipment that we've got. You know, Adam wouldn't have his SLS camera.
You're correct.
Would we be talking about EMF if it weren't for the TV shows? I don't know.
That's been around for a long time. I mean, once again, it's an education. It's an education thing. People that, how can I put this without sounding like a snob? I guess people.
You can sound like a snob. It's
no,
fine.
it's just people that have, that interest, that want to dig into it. Will, they'll discover, okay, the methods and that have been around for a while, and also what the new methods are being used by, people, and you figure it out. And EMFs and white noise and everything's been around for quite a while. So, you could find it out. Now, going back to that, they don't explain what the equipment is. I see some groups going out with equipment, not understanding the equipment. So how can you evaluate what you're getting if you don't really understand what you're getting and what it's doing and why it's doing it? And how does that pertain to a ghost?
Yes, and I would say most of us, well, I shouldn't say most of us. I would say that there are several people who are misusing equipment, but then again, we're using equipment that wasn't made to hunt ghosts either.
A lot of it was.
Well, but the tri-field meter is kind of what I was thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's...
Some people purchase that because they've seen it on TV and have really no idea, even where to point it, how to point it, what they're measuring, any of that.
That's what was nice Friday when your K2 was going off, and I brought the tri-field. The nice thing with the proper tri-field is I could say, okay, is this magnetic, is it electronic interference, is it radio frequency, and there's a setting for each one of them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of nice.
Speaking of, what did we decide was on the steps?
It was magnetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it wasn't a ghost feeder because it was miles away. So, and it stayed still for a while, moved for a bit, and then
it didn't move. It didn't move far.
Nope.
It would move up, maybe up a step, maybe down a step, maybe a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. It didn't move far, but it stayed fairly consistent for a little bit. It seemed like it would go away for a little bit and come back.
Yeah, when I checked around it, see, here's the thing that got me is we were getting it where the K2 was going off, so I set it to magnetic, and it was going off. When I put it to electronic, it wasn't doing anything, so we know it was a magnetic field. And then I moved it far off one way, all directions. I was getting 0 all the way around it. So, if it was a line of something coming in, no, it was sitting there like a blob,
right.
So it wasn't a very big blob, but it was there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, make that what you want, but, we found it, and we found it using the equipment as it's supposed to be used, I guess, is the thing, not just, oh, look, it's beeping, there's something there.
Well, exactly.
You gotta follow that up and try and get a second opinion from another piece of equipment.
And my interest behind it initially was I had a K2 with me pretty much all night, and it didn't go off. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it went off in this one little random spot. So it's always nice when the equipment doesn't go off and then goes off out of nowhere.
Because a nothing is also a result.
Exactly. But I think that's one thing that TV has created a problem with.
There's never a nothing.
Right. There's never a nothing. I mean, there's never 0 things that happen. It's always something. It's few and far between.
They remind me of Paranormal Cops. Cops never shows you the guy that got away. I
think there was actually a show called Paranormal Cops.
Chicago was a city haunted by its criminals. I became a cop to solve crimes. But one case led me to something supernatural. So I started the Chicago Paranormal Detectives with some other cops. We are trained professionals.
Who's down here? What's your name?
Using our skills as investigators to uncover the truth. We are police officers by day and paranormal cops by night. We don't rest until your case is closed.
There you go.
Right.
They always catch it,
Yeah.
And I mean, and we know, and anybody that's been doing this, I mean, like I say, I'm not a massive veteran, but, I've been doing it long enough to know that it just doesn't happen that way it happens in the shows. You're not jumping every 10 minutes and seeing something every 5 minutes. Your stuff's not going off every 2 minutes. It's just...
Well, and like I told Eric, when we were getting ready for talking with the spirits at one point, talking about the Granger house, and I'd love to give him crap about his statement that he didn't find it very interesting because he fell asleep right away. And that's fine. I do give him a hard time about that, all in good fun, because I don't expect everybody to come to the Granger house and think it's amazingly haunted and the best place they've ever been. I would love that, but I'm realistic enough to know it's not what you see on TV. And that is part of what Eric's problem is, because he is looking for the Zach Bagans experience, and that's just not real. Now, when we were at Waverly last month, I kind of, at one point in the night, we were a little disappointed with how slow everything felt, but we were getting a lot of little things, and I had to put myself into check because I was expecting a TV-type experience.
Because it's Waverly, the big one.
It is. Yeah. And sometimes in that type of situation, you forget to appreciate the small things that are happening around you and look at the whole picture. Instead, why have I not seen a full-body apparition? Or why have I not seen this shadow person dart across the hallway? But we've had disembodied voices all night. And, Scott thought he saw a hand coming out of a room.
That was funny. His reaction was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, we had all of these things happening, but it just wasn't the big kahuna, I guess. So, in a sense, I think TV is definitely ruining the experience because people are expecting something different.
It's a two-sided sword.
Yeah.
So, here's the problem I see as well, is that skeptics, like myself, when I watch them, even though I do it now, I kind of don't do it because of the shows. Skeptics will look at that, they just shake their heads and say, look at these idiots, and never put in a second thought of, maybe it is real. There is no maybe it is real when you're watching those shows if you're a skeptic. You know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. It took me actually going with my buddy Jeff, and the reason I went there is so I could watch them scare themselves like they do on the shows.
Oh my God!
So, that's how I got into it, and then I had my own experiences. I'm like, well, wait a minute. And I also found out that it wasn't like the shows. It was actually sitting out camping or fishing and see if you catch anything kind of deal. And I like that. So, I've got the patience, and I don't want it in my face, because go at the camera all you want.
Yeah.
You don't need to get in my face. Just go wave at the camera.
And I had a coworker at one point. When people find out that you are into the paranormal, everybody automatically gets really curious and wants to hear the stories. So I shared stories. Edinburgh Manor is the place I've been to definitely more than any other place, and so I have plenty of stories from that location. And my coworker and her boyfriend at the time rented the place out themselves, and the two of them were going to go out there and spend a night together. And despite my telling her it's not like you see on TV, she came back so upset and disappointed because she said nothing happened. Because when you're at Edinburgh Manor, despite what happened on Ghost Adventures and Billy screaming and Aaron running out of the building, or however that went,
This place housed the incurably insane.
It's hurt me. It's hurt family.
There is a strong pressure on my throat.
It is a cauldron of violent, dark energy.
Are you seeing that?
What do you want from us?
Oh, I'm shaking. I heard that.
I've never had that experience before. I've heard disembodied voices which have startled me. I've heard a woman singing and whistling in the basement, but I've never had anything that's made me scream or feel like I need to run out the building.
I've had a couple of really fight or flight instances there where, but they were mostly feelings, and, I'm like, come on, get a grip, because here's the other thing is a lot of these things, because they are drawn out and there's a lot of nothingness, to be honest with you, you're just sitting listening, hoping to catch something. You usually work the day before, at least we have when we go. There's a sleep deprivation part that kicks in, and you have to also recognize that if you're going to do it, because, your mind will play tricks on you, and you have to, okay, this might just be my mind playing tricks on me, and try and get a grip, so there's that too, which I think as well, on the other hand, though, for other people that are less experienced, they're going to hear something that's sleep deprivation. They'll be like, "Oh,
and get excited about it,
and then get all mad that they didn't catch it on a voice recorder or on a camera, and swear blind that it happened." So.
Well, and I think the other thing too, people forget that reality is these shows spend days on these locations. We were at the Omaha Haunticon, and Brandy from Ghost Hunters International was talking about how they would spend roughly 3 days on location. I know Ghost Adventures spends about the same amount of time. And you got to remember that these shows that are anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes are cramming 3 days, and they're still spending a lot of time talking about the story, doing interviews, those types of things. The whole show is not evidence. Even after 3 days, the whole show is not evidence. And if you break it down, you're probably lucky if you've got maybe 5 minutes of stuff that's...
And then that 5 minutes, how much is off camera?
Well...
And just a facial reaction to a noise.
Right.
Which, that's... You got a whole crew sitting there. So, I don't know. It's... Once again, I look at it as a lot more skeptical. It's... it doesn't happen that way. And the other thing that... they get there. The cameras are set up, ready to go. Mm-hmm. They've got sound people there. They've got camera people there. I know it looks like there's just like 3 of them with a camera, but there's not. There's a camera crew, there's sound people. The producers a lot of times are there, trying to wean some more out of it. There's a lot that goes into stuff like that, which, once again, for me, I find it good entertainment, and I'm glad it's there, and I'm glad people enjoy it. I'm glad it's brought people in to do the stuff. Mm-hmm. But I just wish people would just stop one time and go, wait a minute, all that stuff that goes into it, to produce that, because they're producing an image. It's not a real thing, I don't think.
Well, and I've heard that, I don't have proof that Ghost Hunters ever set their stuff. I've heard that rumor, but I did hear there was a paranormal show out of Canada that actually would have a separate set that mirrored where they were at so that they could create the evidence. I don't know the name of the show, but that's happening, and I doubt they're the only ones to do that.
When I said set their stuff up, I just meant their gear, their cameras, not what happens.
Right, but there are shows who are doing that.
Yeah.
Who are creating that. And I just watched a YouTube video, and I cannot for the life of me think what show they were talking about, but they talked about how the producers would come ahead and, kind of arrange people's houses and set it up in such a way that things would happen. So this is happening, and people need to understand that, and I think sometimes we forget that because we get so caught up in the excitement of it all.
Well, no reality TV is reality.
Well, that's
Most
true.
of them are scripted.
That's true.
Anything from The Bachelor.
This is now the final rose tonight. When you're ready.
All of them are just
not live
scripted.
PD.
Okay.
One thing I will say, it always kind of frustrates me how, yes, I learned how to ghost hunt, if you will, from TV. It frustrates me how little I've broken away from what I've seen on TV. Like, I truly want to start doing things a whole different way. And I truly want to do it our way and not just be mimicking what I see on TV. But I will tell you what, the amount of people who mimic exactly what they see on TV kills me. First of all, everybody's doing, and I don't mean to talk bad about people, I just have never in the middle of an investigation felt like I needed to be on Facebook Live.
We're going live. We're live.
We are live.
Just come on. We're back live, and we're heading down to the dark hallway.
On the one hand, I appreciate that people do that, because if there's a location I've never even heard of or have been curious about and somebody's on Facebook Live, I can at least get kind of a glimpse into how that's going. On the other hand, I'm going to live if you don't do that. I've just never felt like I needed to broadcast. And I think it's like we all feel like we want to be on TV anymore. I don't. And so I guess I shouldn't say we all.
I want the money.
Right. Well, amen to that. So many people want to mimic so hard what they're seeing on TV that they've come to a place where they're making YouTube episodes. They've got their own little TV shows on YouTube now.
You're talking about me.
I am. I am. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I am.
No, you're fine.
No, I'm not. Vidi Space is a new channel started by Nick Groff, and that's where all of the paranormal shows have kind of gone now. now the networks are picking, obviously, up new shows, but Vidi Space is nothing but paranormal TV. I've got friends who have series on there, and I like these people, and I like what they do, but I've never wanted to be them. I've never wanted to be on TV, and I think there's so many people in the field now who that's what they really want. They want to be Zach Bagans. They want to mimic that. So that's why we're stopping in the middle of investigations to go live on Facebook, and that's why all of our videos come out looking like ghost adventures. Even now, there's people who are renting these places for 3 days because that's what Paranormal Lockdown does.
Yeah.
Now, Nick and Katrina will check in for 72 hours to investigate these malevolent entities.
We're so mimicking what we see on TV that there is no fresh thought to what we're doing anymore.
Here's the thing. So, you're right with the YouTube stuff. Now, there are a couple of people in my group, and I'm not going to mention names. When we first started, it's like, oh, we got a TV show. I was like, well, if that's the way you're going to go, we don't need to be doing this now, because we are not going to do this that way. The only reason that we do a channel is because for me, if I'm doing paranormal investigation, I want evidence. Now, anecdotes are not evidence. Telling stories is not evidence. Otherwise, ghosts would have been proved a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I want to go in and actually catch it. So the problem is, the way we do it is, it's boring. I mean, we don't have a high watch rate just because the things we throw out there are not exciting. They're just, this is what happened. I'm sorry, I can't.
Well, they are exciting if you're looking for real information, real evidence.
But they're not, they're not action cam running around. What was that? So a lot of it, and I try and edit them down so you get, from a 10-hour one, I might get 4 or 5 minutes worth of actual usable video. I used to do 20-minute videos of putting things together that kind of summarize the whole investigation. I haven't done that in a while because you don't get any views. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, I've got the bits I want. I throw those out as WTF clips. It takes a lot of my time to edit them together and explain them. So, and that's sad, I think. If you're into the paranormal and it's better than a live, because if it's a proper live one, and I've watched some of these live ones, and all I see is kids sitting there going, oh, blah, blah, oh, what was that?
Man. Okay.
Time to go. We're going.
And it just drives me insane. I'm like, well, get up and go look.
Right.
Where's your equipment to measure what that was?
Yeah.
Why is it happening to you every 10 minutes when it doesn't happen to anybody else every 10 minutes?
And the other biggest thing is a lot of these, they're out there for the experience and they're not trying to prove anything. They're just for the experience. And
which there's not anything necessarily wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're going...
But it's not the same as investigating.
Right. And I read a book, and I can't remember. I'm crap at remembering the names of books and who the authors were. I just read them, put them aside, and hold the bits I want to keep. But one guy pointed out, who's kind of like me, he's had his experiences, and he's kind of semi-skeptic on a lot of them, but he knows what he's had, and he's part of a group. And he said, what he sees now, a lot of especially the social media age people, they have this thing where they want to be seen as the people running into the burning building, so look, I'm not running away from danger, look at me. Mm-hmm. And that's their mindset. It's how to get, and I hate to say it, I sound like a snob, but it's their way of getting the attention that they want and being famous at something, without doing too much hard work. You just sit in the building going, right. What was that? You don't actually put the work in.
And I don't mean to insinuate that I think there's something wrong with wanting to be on TV or wanting to mimic the shows, if that's what you want to do. But I do think there is a difference between probably our type of group, who I feel like I'm there for the experience, but I'm also there for something much deeper. And then there's people who are solely there for the experience. But like I said, I have friends who have a series on Vidi Space, and I think they do great things. And one of them has mind much like yours. I think that he could do good things, but I think he's going to be burdened with having to make things constantly exciting, where their series may not turn out the way he hopes, which is disappointing.
You can't do both.
I agree. I agree. I wish him the best because they are such good guys, and I really do like them. And I hope good things come for them, but I do think with the way his mind works, he's not going to get out the education that he hopes because people are going to want the excitement. And I don't think that they go hand in hand all the time.
The only way you could do something like that, which is something I'd love to do, but don't have the resources or the time, if you went away and did this, every weekend for a year, and then came out and did an hour and a half show.
Right.
Then you'd have enough to make it exciting, because you go from one instance to another, then you could maybe make a decent amount of show without having to fake anything. And here's the other thing I will admit to, especially at the beginning, we had like 3 dud investigations in a row. Absolutely nothing, including Velisca and this and that. And I had some stuff, I'm like, I didn't believe it, it's kind of quirky, but I thought, some people probably believe it, and I almost gave in to saying, look, we got to put something out, let's put this out, and I was like, no, this is not what we're going to do, and I can see where that pressure comes when you decide you're going to do a YouTube video, and you got nothing to put out. Okay, now you're under pressure, what do? Do you just not put it out?
Well, and, TV, I think, is partially to blame with leading us to believe that Velisca has to be haunted because a mass murder happened there. And if you go there and don't come back with anything,
then you must be bad ghost hunter. Because everybody else got something. What are you doing wrong?
Zach Bagans took the axe in there and had made contact with the killer. I don't even remember how that episode went. It was just so silly.
And then you called out, what is your name?
The murderer's name. Yeah. That's right. I did ask what the murderer's name was, and we got a response. What is the murderer's name?
That's the first thing I asked.
I just vaguely remember that. I was probably falling asleep at the time that the episode was on, but yeah, I know he freaked out and did all kinds of crazy stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Jeez.
I will tell you, though, the one show that and the only one right now that I can continue to watch, and not on a very regular basis, but I love The Dead Files.
This seems like a possession. My name is Amy Allen. Everything was built on blood. I see dead people. Very disturbing. I speak to dead people. There's victims around him. Ow. And they speak to me. Her voice sounds like death. But there's only one way to know if my findings are real. The living don't stand a chance here. I rely on my partner.
I'm Steve DeShop. I'm a retired New York City homicide detective. You could have got killed. And I know every person, every house has secrets.
This is coming straight from hell.
It's my job to reveal them. Your mom was murdered right here in this room.
Yes, she was. But Steve and I never speak.
We never communicate during an investigation.
Until the very end.
This was just the beginning. When we uncover if it's safe for you to stay...
Oh, my God. Or time to get out. They're very bad. This house is going to kill me.
I know why I love The Dead Files.
Is that the one with the medium and the FBI guy?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And here's why I love it. Because I love that they take the paranormal aspect and then Steve goes and does all the history stuff because I want to be Steve and somebody else can be my Amy. And I love that they do that. And I don't always know how to take Amy Allen and the things that she comes up with. And I follow the woman on Twitter and she's a little quirky in life, just like she is on TV. But perhaps that she knows a lot more about the paranormal than the rest of us. I don't know. That or she's completely a wacko, and that could be the case too. Regardless, I still love watching that show. But I really love it because they talk history. It's real history. Now, granted, it's, these meetings are set up, and obviously when they take a case, the producers are finding who they need to talk to, and, all the printouts that they have are the same, and so there's a lot of work that goes into finding the history, but the fact that they are talking about the history and they are bringing it up and they are nothing that I've seen so far indicates to me that they're faking the history, which we've talked about before.
This is Gracie's room. She was multiple personality and schizophrenic.
That grates me like nothing else.
That show I have watched a few of, and you're right, I do enjoy that until the medium part. But the guy I like, because he'll go in and he does his stuff, and I'll be honest with you, he probably hasn't done half the investigations. The producers and the producers' assistants have done a lot of the background stuff, and he goes around. But it's entertainment.
It is.
You know, so...
And he tweeted back to me when I was really excited. I was super pumped.
Your moment of fame.
I did. I got a tweet back from Steve.
You got one?
Well, that and the Demon Files.
My name is Ralph Sarchi. I'm a retired New York City police sergeant. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm not a ghost hunter. I am a demonologist. I'm on a new kind of mission to help people.
Which only lasted, I think, about 4 episodes. But Ralph Sarchi messaged me back too, and like I had my little moment. I was so stinking excited. But I love the movie.
There's 2 types of evil in this life, Officer Sarchi. Secondary evil, the evil that men do, and primary evil, which is something else entirely.
I've seen some horrible things. Nothing that can't be explained by human nature.
Then you haven't seen true evil.
I mean, partially because he was a cop who came into the paranormal, and that, you know, obviously I work for a police department and I love the paranormal, and I love that all my cops make fun of me nonstop and then sneak into dispatch to tell me their stories of this one time or when I was playing with the Ouija board.
Actually, I've got a book that is just about cops and their paranormal stories.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Well, and
cool.
you have to imagine that they have a lot of them. I mean,
you'd think
they won't admit it.
Well, exactly, they won't admit to it, but there has to be a lot of police officers throughout the world that have a lot of paranormal experiences just due to the alarm went off and I got there and there's
Well, a lot
nothing,
of these were. They get
you
called
know?
out because someone sees something going on in the house. They go there. They see something going on in the house. They'll chase someone down the corridor into a dead-end room, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
And they're like,
oh crap!
Well,
how am I going to fill the paperwork out on this one?
When we were on the Queen Mary, we had the guy who leads the group tours, and thankfully when Adam and I went, there was only one other person who was doing the investigations with us. Or no, I apologize, two other people. So there were 4 of us plus our leader. I don't know what his name is, I can't remember. But then we also had the security guard who, if memory serves me correctly, was also in law enforcement as well. And when we were down in the pool area having our experience, he was experiencing something completely different, where he was hearing voices that we weren't hearing, and we were hearing a woman being murdered, and he wasn't hearing that.
And he was only 20 feet away from us, if
Right.
even that far.
But, I mean, same type of situation where I think he was kind of like, what the hell, you know?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I was skeptical. I just went as a favor, make up the numbers, and have a good night with a buddy. And, you know, I heard these women, the children voices. I was like, wait a minute. And that does wake you up.
Yeah.
If you're a skeptic, you're like, no, wait a minute. You know, and I tried to debunk it and say, well, maybe I'll sleep deprived, maybe. But I was with a buddy who was also just as skeptic as me. We just looked at each other, and he was hoping I heard it, and I was hoping he heard it, because I was like, really?
That's not my reaction every
Yeah.
time I hear a disembodied voice.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. What the fuck? That's we named our group that.
Right.
What the fuck investigation? We're investigating the what the fuck?
Exactly.
The one thing that does make me a little sad, and I always dog on Ghost Adventures, and there are shows that are equally as bad, if not worse, than theirs. So I do not mean to insinuate that every show is better than theirs, because that is not the case by
But
any
not
stretch.
as smug as his. Theirs.
That's probably true.
That's
But
what annoys me.
what pisses me off is the amount of money the man's making and how the paranormal field has held him up like a god. That drives me insane. He's got some really great minds working on that show. Digital Dowsing is a line that has produced the Ovilus, the SLS camera, I mean, all kinds of equipment, and most of it starts out on Ghost Adventures. But it's being created by somebody who is a complete skeptic. Now, I know that you don't buy, John, that you don't buy into all of the equipment, and that's fair, and I don't think you have to. But Bill Chappell does not believe in ghosts. He does not know what we're making contact with, so he hesitates to call them a ghost. He just knows that something is happening. He doesn't know what. He can't explain it. He originally created the Ovilus to talk to plants, of all things. And they started using it on TV and realized that it appears we can use it to talk to ghosts. Now, I tell you what, we don't use our Ovilus that often. I will tell you, when we were at the Squirrel Cage jail, Adam said something about feeling old, and it said Grandpa, which I thought was kind of
Actually,
interesting.
I walked into one of the cell doors.
That's right.
With my knee, and said, "Son of a bitch, that hurt." And it said Grandpa. And I'm like, really? I mean...
Which could have been complete coincidence, but it was funny nonetheless. And that's really, I think, the only other word it said all night was prior to that. At one point it said body.
And to me, I'm sorry, this is just to me. The words that come out of there are so situational of nearly anywhere you could go on any ghost hunt where it could say body.
But I didn't think the body was...
No, but I'm just saying, the way that thing's put together. So you'll get things like body. What's the other one I've seen come out? Coffin.
I counter that with, though, I hardly ever get that thing to go off.
No, but I guess my choice of words that are actually in there to pull out, Grandpa, you know, I mean, old people's houses, old houses, I mean...
Right. I do not disagree with that at all.
It's just the choice of words that are programmed in there.
I absolutely get what you're saying.
You know, I'm just, like I say, I come from it from a different angle. I'm like, why did you put those, why does coffin have to be in there?
Right. He'll explain to you how it works if you want to hear it.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Has said that.
If you and he said that to us when we met him, and we asked him some questions, and he said, "If you would like to sit down, I will explain it to you." But he
said you're not going to understand.
Right. He has no problem sitting down with anyone and explaining to you the algorithm that's used behind it and exactly how it works. He doesn't care because the guy's a multi-millionaire, so he doesn't give a shit.
And he's a skeptic. He doesn't believe in it any more than I do. To be
I would agree with you.
Honest with you.
Yeah.
So I would sit down. I know. I know most of you. I did. You know, it takes this reading, that reading, across tables and on the table. Doesn't algorithm. I know that. What I would ask him if I sat down with him is, how did you pick the words to put in those tables? Did somebody tell you what words to put in, or were you catering to the people that were buying it, or where did you get those words to actually put in for the ghost?
Well, let's see if we can find the answer to those questions.
Yeah.
So, no, but you know, who chooses what words goes in these machines? Mm-hmm. I have a problem with that.
But I can also tell you, with him being skeptical and also putting out the equipment, we probably had one of our most amazing paranormal experiences based on what he told us to do, based on zero equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He told us, don't take anything, just sit. And granted, it's a personal experience for us. We don't have anything to base it on other than just our word, but I can tell you that was the craziest crap I've ever seen in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And that was based on a guy that was completely skeptical and also makes this equipment that we're skeptical of.
No,
so,
and that's... You know, this is just my own opinion, not
100%.
I've tried the same as the Spiritus app.
Welcome to Spiritus.
And I haven't had time yet, because what I am going to do though, because I know I heard it, I'm going to cut pieces of sound out of me talking and pieces of sound out of what we were getting out of there, because I know at least twice they matched up.
See, and I've tried to be very vigilant of that lately when I've used it, and I have not heard it that I've noticed. I've not heard it repeat, and I try to be very careful about my wording, especially when I'm asking questions, to not say the word that I'm expecting or looking for. So I have not had the same experience you have, but I'm eager to see the results of your...
and once again,
I think the Spiritus and the SLS, or not the Spiritus, the Spiritus app, and the Ovilus, rather, are very similar in my naive little brain to what I'm going to get when I'm investigating. It's going to take what's happening outside of the piece of equipment, and it's going to spit a word out to me that hopefully means something to what I'm doing. Now, what it means to your brain is something completely different.
It's not what it means to my brain, it's how they gather the input to pick the word. So now, let's say it's a ghost that's doing it. So on this machine, the ghost has got to change the temperature and pressure or whatever, EMF that it's measuring. Now on the Spiritus, it's got to learn a whole new thing and try and pick the word out. We're making it, let's just say, if they do work, we are making it awfully hard for the ghost to communicate, not easier.
Well, and I don't want to get too far into that because we will talk about equipment, because that's a whole other way that people are profiting off of the paranormal field. One other thing I want to touch base on, besides the fact that I am really angry that somebody as great as Bill Chappell works for a show that I dislike as much as I do.
I can't give you an explanation.
A lot of the places that people have investigated, we wouldn't know about if it wasn't for these TV shows. Now, you and I have discussed, well, all three of us have discussed wanting to get away from those commercially paranormal places. And my group, See Paranormal, tends to go after places that people haven't been. For example, we are the first ones to do the Granger House, the Wheating Theater in Toledo, and there's been several other places that we went to that other people haven't, or not very many have. Because that way we don't have set expectations to disappoint us, I guess, if things don't go like they did on TV. But, kind of like what we talked about last week, too, some of these places, and I'll use Waverly as an example, it was on Ghost Hunters. They introduced the world to Waverly Hills. We all fell in love with it. We all wanted to go. We've saved that building. And people are having some really cool experiences while they're there, too. And we're remembering stories of some of the people that were there, some of the patients that are there. So, again, with your double-edged sword, I think that this is definitely one. But it's brought some locations to the forefront. It's brought some stories to the forefront. But at the same time, they're getting really saturated.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing as far as historic buildings. Edinburgh, I think, is worth the money. Obviously the Granger House is worth the money.
Yes, it is.
Historic buildings and stuff, and places where you actually do get activity. So Edinburgh, I have never gone there when it's totally dead. I've had less, but so those I don't mind. And okay. Some places, and I am going to call out the Lisker Axe murder, are just making a buttload of money out of it. And that's fine too if people go there and have an experience. If I didn't, oh well, But even if people go there and have an experience that isn't real, they're still having a good night out. And if they're willing to pay for that, that's good too. Yeah. So, and they're not, going out and selling drugs or writing graffiti. So, right. I mean, it's not all bad, but when things like that happen and it's not doing the actual the field of study any good, it's doing it harm. When you get people just running around making up stories, and then the thing is, if you challenge them, they take it personally, and then you say, "Would you prove?" Well, I just know, And to me, I'm like, you're not doing anyone any favors doing that either. So I like it as far as the buildings go, as far as the shows go that are teaching. I just wish I wish that an actual, like National Geo or one of the more serious science ones would actually put together a team and say, and then do what I said, give them a year and then actually have a couple of scientists on, and then everybody, like Bill Chappell, get him on board and actually work for someone that's going to say, look, let's think of some experiments, so if we go to this place, instead of going into the history of the place, which is nice for the Travel Channel, because that's half of what they do. It's a Travel Channel. Yeah. They want the history. So you go and say, okay, this place is haunted, and this apparition or this thing happens a lot that people see. Nobody cares about the history. We are now going to look at this one thing going on. We don't need to know the history. We are going to concentrate on this. And I'd love that someone would do that. And they could make that, they could sexy it up, that's fine. But as long as they say what they're doing, why they're doing it, which theory they're testing, all that kind of stuff. To me, that will be a great show. Not the running around demon scratches. What was that behind the door? Oh, it was a cameraman. So. And
to be fair, there are some great minds, not just making equipment, but great minds on some of these shows. I, through following Grant Wilson on social media, have a pretty big respect for him because I don't think he's very into sensationalism. Having listened to Rob Demarest. I can tell you my expectations of hearing him talk were blown away after I heard him talk. And he was very much encouraging people to get away from watching or from doing what they see on TV and starting to, figure some things out for ourselves. But he's got some really good ideas on different ways to investigate too. So a lot of these people have the right mindset, but ratings are ultimately what directs those shows.
Ratings is king.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the problem, but hey, what do you do?
Exactly. All right, well, let's do our picture of the week. This week I took a picture that I found online from the Squirrel Cage Jail. And I chose this obviously because we had just been there. And it is depicting, reportedly, a shadow person. Now, the way that so the picture on the right is the original picture. And I have added the circle to kind of show you where to look. The picture on the left is the same picture lightened up to show you what the people were seeing. And, of course, they have made that into a shadow person, which I agree. It looks like a man. The hand is the right hand is my biggest problem there as to whether or not it's a shadow. Not a shadow person, but a shadow. The hand, yes, I think it is the plumbing. And but people have viewed that picture and said, no, look, it's the hand. So I'm curious to get feedback from the two of you. It's obviously on the other side of the bars. I mean, we can tell that.
Now that we've been there and seen where the photo was actually taken, now I can definitively say that the hand is the plumbing. Because now I've seen how the plumbing for that faucet is set up. And I can 110% see that. Now, as far as the figure, I don't buy it at all. I just don't.
You probably need to have more than just that.
I just don't.
Because it's too incredible to be real?
No, it looks photoshopped to me, to be quite honest. It when you look at the bars on the lightened up version and you look at how, I can't point to it, but if you look at how the bar that's kind of, I know, right? How the bar in the middle is wider on the top than it is at the bottom. Now, why is that? Why is it wider on the top than it is on the bottom?
I do not see what you're saying at all.
Okay, I'm going to point to it just for you guys. Here. It's wider up here than it is down here.
I think that's just the angle.
To me, that means that that's shaded in and they didn't get it all. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think that would be very tedious to Photoshop something behind the bars that way, though.
Well,
maybe. Maybe not.
I don't.
My thought was that it may be somebody's shadow. I think I laid on that floor for a while because I was melting. But I did try to kind of look in there and try to figure out how, where everything would have been standing. And I don't think that I was able to figure out how the shadow would have come about. So it is completely plausible that this is not somebody's shadow. But initially that was my thought.
Okay, so I guess I'm looking at it. There's something in front of the sink that isn't the shadow.
The thing that's glowing orange?
No, I mean the actual shadow outline. If you look, it's in front of the sink. So if we look at his arms, if that was a shadow being cast from a light,
well, yes,
it's not following the contours of the sink.
Okay, yes.
If you see what I mean. The only thing that makes me... Okay, so it looks like a man with a hat. So the only thing I'm wondering about, though, what's that bit hanging down on to us, the left side of his head?
Well, and then I wonder about this little piece right here by the sink.
Which is sink, that follows sink. But, if he's a shadow and halfway see-through, well, either that or he's wearing, he's got dreadlocks sticking out under his hat or something, So, I don't know. I'll be honest here, I doubt it's a shadow person, but that's just me. I will. There's nothing there for me to 100% say. That being said, I mean, I don't know where the light source is coming from. I can see one light source that hitting the side of the door, but...
Well, and the lights do appear to be on in the building. I don't remember enough about where lights were in there.
So, it's behind the bars, it's in the room.
We're so hesitant to call this real, aren't we?
Yeah, but, I mean, do you know why? Because the chances are it isn't.
I agree.
I'll be
I
honest.
agree. I think it's funny that none of us, all three of us are sitting here.
The only thing I will
None
say...
of us have a good explanation,
but the one thing I will say that makes me think it's not real is just because of that huge coincidence that the plumbing ends at the end of his arms. So if it's a real Shadow figure that had a hand, where's his hand?
Right.
Why is it plumbing? And
Well-
then coming off from that sleeve. So if you follow that along, you say, okay, it's a shadow person. If you look, his sleeve then takes a 90-degree right angle
Yes.
and then goes down to the floor. So what's he wearing? So yeah, it's very good. And can I tell you what casts a shadow? No, but it doesn't mean it's a shadow person. If you,
I don't disagree. I don't think any of us probably feel like it is genuine. I think it's probably misidentification. I don't feel like it was purposely done to make somebody think it was something else.
No.
I think it's a misidentification. Adam thinks it was a purposeful attempt.
And it could
Yes,
be too.
and I apologize to anybody that looks at it and says,
I took that. I didn't do it.
right, I didn't do that on purpose. I'm sorry,
that's it.
but I could see how you could. Granted, it would take some time, but I could see how you could fix it.
I'm a little confused about whatever that glowing orange thing is on the stair. I assume it's a sign of some sort, but why is it glowing orange?
Oh, I don't know. Was the sun going down, coming in through the window?
Would it be that bright, you think? Just in that
Could
one
be.
spot?
Yeah, could be. I don't know.
I would have to remember where the windows were and know more about time of day and, all that kind of crazy stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that to me kind of looks like reflection a little bit off of what I'm not 100% certain, but...
I mean, that's the problem. It's so grainy, and I don't think it's a shadow person. I'd love to say, yeah, there it is, woo! But, no. Because, like I say, the hand is too convenient, and then if you say, okay, that's not the hand, and then follow that shadow across, it's going 90 degrees and then down. So, and that stupid thing hanging off his hat, why would that be there?
Right.
And his hat's not even symmetric. So, you think it's like, what was that first Colonel on MASH used to wear that fishing hat all the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember, but I don't.
So, it looks like someone wearing a fishing hat. And that's the other thing, shadow people wear hats a lot, apparently. When you're reading online about them.
Well,
it's like they wear hats.
We can get into that whole
I know,
other
I know.
episode. But yes, I mean, the one theory is that they display themselves the way they see themselves, which is why they wear clothes. But that's a whole nother episode. All right. Well, despite whether or not this is a shadow person or not, I think we can all agree that the Squirrel Cage Jail is worth visiting. What were you going to say?
Next week, can we do the weird one that we got at Farrar that looks shadowy formed?
Yeah.
That I tried to
Absolutely.
debunk and I couldn't quite.
I love when we can do our own pictures. So absolutely, I would love to do that. So if you would like to check out any of John's videos on YouTube, you can of course find those at WTF Investigations. And you can find me on Facebook at C Paranormal Sarah. It's just SEE Paranormal Sarah with an H. And then you can find Seeking the Paranormal on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, keep seeking the paranormal.
Thank you for listening, and for all things Paranormal Buzz Radio related, check out our website at paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.